Thank you and welcome to the Patriots 300 level podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back for our 44th episode this week, where we'll be recapping last Sunday's game versus the Indianapolis Colts and discussing news around the NFL, which there is a lot this week. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pat's 300 level pod for up-to-the-minute commentary and updates and news of the day, as well as at our website at pats300levelpod.com. So, Kevin, Patriots had another win where it wasn't the prettiest game to watch, but a win is a win. They beat the Colts 26-3. You were at that game, which, fortunate for you, you didn't have to listen to that awful announcing. But what was your thoughts just being at the game and the game in general?
I think, like you said, it's another game where a win's a win, so it wasn't the prettiest of things at all. And we kind of talked about this going into the game, where they were going to have some challenges on offense, where they're facing a top 10 defense in the league, so it wasn't going to be as easy and pretty as some of the other games. So, yeah. It was a win. Can you tell anything from this win? Not really. I don't think. The only thing you can really tell is that the Patriots can and will be able to beat any kind of middling team and any sort of rookie, or the Patriots can expose a lot of things on people's teams and make them look actually worse than they actually are. But that Colts offense really does not look good at all based on the offensive line. But the one thing that is concerning would be our offensive line. I think that's the biggest thing you can kind of really learn coming out of this game, where you're still having struggles on the offensive line and they haven't really fixed anything. And losing Andrews in that middle of the line, I think is really hurting them too. So I think that doesn't help from him not being there. But in order to do anything this year, if they want to have any hopes of getting into the playoffs, having at least a playoff win, they need to correct that offensive line, because everything starts there. So any of this talk about Mac Jones not looking good in this game, you put Tom Brady in there, he would have the same effect by how bad the offensive line was this past week. So
Brady might be a little better, but I don't think it's fair to say that they'd have the exact same results. But Brady wouldn't look like Brady, just like 2019 Brady didn't look like
he would
Brady.
Look exactly how he looked in 2019 and exactly how he looked last game. This last game against the Rams, except for that last drive, basically. So, but other than that, they had a good flyover for the game, so that was good. 4 fighter jets this time. I think it's the first time I've ever seen 4 in a fighter jet formation, so that was actually kind of cool.
Oh, really? I live in San Diego near Miramar, Top Gun, so I see them a lot, but it's still pretty cool when you're at the game and seeing the flyover. I think one of the biggest takeaways the last 2 weeks is not only how bad the offense line has been, but how important David Andrews is for this offensive line. Cole Strange, PFF grades from week 4 to week 7. He was the 6th ranked offensive guard. The last 2 weeks, he was benched and was ranked 62nd out of 64. Just showing that it could just be the defensive fronts he's going up against are better, and there's more tape on him. So defense coordinators are understanding how to attack him. But I feel like also the communication from David Andrews is a big thing as well that has probably helped as well. The right tackle situation, that's something that they have to figure out. Just wasn't great with Cannon being on IR now. In the run game, he was actually pretty good, but he was bad in pass protection, and Isaiah Wynn has been bad. He was okay as a guard. He was better than he was at right tackle, but still, they have a bye week coming up. They have time to try and correct it, but the season, they're getting into that tough stretch where they don't have too much more time where they can try and tinker with things to find out the best rotation. They have to try and figure it out soon, or else the season could be lost.
Yep. Yeah, completely. I think Kajust in the run game actually was pretty good. I think because he's kind of big, and I think that really helps. But in the passing game, and I forgot who it was that I kind of tweeted out a bunch of different clips of him, but I think it was Taylor Kynes.
Yeah, Taylor Kyles.
But it seemed, I'm not sure if he's got short arms, but
I think that's what they were saying.
It looks like his arms are actually kind of short when he's trying to pass block, and I think that's what's really hurting him. But I don't know. They have to do something. Where I was kind of a little hopeful about him getting the start. I was a little excited to see what he was going to do, and he didn't. There wasn't really any change from what it's looked like the last few weeks,
Yeah.
and it's just a sieve coming from that right side. So they need to do something by either get some more chipping involved, have another running back back there. They got to do something because
Yeah.
whatever they're doing isn't working.
And the thing is, the Colts defense, they have a lot of very fast and athletic guys in their front seven. So that's one thing, especially with Kajust or someone that doesn't have as much experience. But the rest of the way, you're going up against some very good defensive fronts that are going to give you the same problems too, where they might not be as fast or as athletic, but they might be stronger and more powerful. So regardless, you have to figure this out soon.
Yep.
But also their offensive line impacted the passing game and the rushing attack too. Mac Jones, 20 of 30, 147 yards, 1 TD, 0 interceptions. Wasn't great, but given the context and situation of what was going on in front of him, there wasn't really much he could do with both the offensive line, and even the play calling was a little suspect.
Yeah.
But I thought, given everything, he was a good game manager. It didn't lose you the game, did enough to put you in situations where you could win, but there wasn't really much more that he could have really done.
Yeah, I think one of the big things too coming out of the game is no turnovers for him, which is a big part, where he controlled the ball a lot more than before, and what was a lot less risk averse than before. I do agree with the play calling, where I don't think like it would have made them hands and above a lot better, but it still would have improved where they were just they're very stagnant, and a lot of the play callings were very similar. To you could really just guess what was going to happen. So even it's kind of sad where I'm calling what's going to happen up in the stands and just seeing what the formation they're in, knowing exactly what they're going to do. First down, they're going to run it. Second down, play action. It's just you could tell what they're in, what they're going to run. And if I can do that, and again, I watch them every single week, so I guess I have a little bit more. It's not like a random fan from like a Bengals fan saying predicting every single thing, but still, if I can do it, and I'm not an NFL head coach, and I'm not watching film all the time, the other defense can. And we heard that as Shaq Leonard was supposedly calling out some of the plays at the line if there's an outside run or a screen, and then even on top of that, the outside runs, they just have to scrap. They're not getting anything out of it. It worked once in that Packers game. But other than that, they've gotten nothing out of it. It keeps failing. So they're so much better as an up the gut running team, or even pulling the guard and having that work. But the zone runs aren't working. They need to just kind of scrap that and just go back to what's working. So
I actually have a question for you on that. This offseason, they let Jakob Johnson go because they didn't see a fullback position on the roster. If you're getting rid of those outside zone, those run zones, do you think that is something that could hurt them not having an actual fullback unless you're using like a Jonnu Smith or Hunter Henry as like a hybrid type fullback where you don't have that person to be really doing those up the middle runs?
Yep, that's a good question. That's what I was saying. They need to get a fullback because they're getting hurt by not having one. Where the whole reason why.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the whole reason why you didn't have a fullback was because you're going to be doing this outside zone stuff, the whole Shanahan scheme, and it just isn't working. So in order to go back to what was working before, they need to get a fullback or someone that could play that role. So it may not have to be a traditional fullback. It could be the tight end. Smith looked all right at some points when they had him in the backfield. Or even hell, you could find someone from like a defensive lineman or a linebacker that could do the job. Like they had
Dan Klecko.
Dan Klecko. They had Landon Roberts do it before. They've done it before where they found a random person to do it. So it's not hard, but they need to find someone and start having that fullback position because it's only going to help them. Where eventually.
One thing though that Stevenson did say a few weeks ago about not having a fullback is he actually likes it because if you have like he said he loves Jakob Johnson, but if you have a fullback, you're trained to follow the fullback. Whereas if you don't, you have more freedom where if you see a hole, you can use those or cut back. So that is one advantage of not having it. But that also helps if you're doing a lot of those outside zones versus like up the middle. Having someone clear it out for you.
Yeah. And I think it would help Harris more too if he was when he's fully healthy again to have a fullback because we saw the production that he had last year and the year before with that. So But yeah, looking at that rushing attack, Andre 15 carries, 60 yards, uh, and then JJ Taylor 10 rushes, 9 yards. He didn't really have any sort of explosiveness.
He didn't, but he was better than his numbers actually look, where he was getting met several yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he was at least being able to bring it back to the line of scrimmage or gaining a yard. He wasn't great, but he did better than the numbers indicate.
Yeah. But again, with Mondre, where he had 15 carries and it wasn't like he exploded or anything like that, but that's also because they kind of knew what was happening, where they're blowing up a ton of plays in the backfield, and there's only so much you could do when you're getting hit right when you get the ball. So I can't blame Mondre on that.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
All right. Next thing, just a big kick, Nick, again, 4 for 4 field goal attempts. If anyone has them on your fantasy team, you've been in luck the last 2 weeks.
Last 2 years.
Yeah. But again, he's just automatic. There's not really much to say there. The Colts defense, going on to kind of the Colts overall, a lot of pressure. No, what's his name? The Rhode Island kid actually looked really good. Quiddy Pay, and he was just blowing up Kajus at right tackle. So they've got a pretty good defense. They just need to figure out their offense, which is the big problem. So
yeah,
I'm assuming the reason why they're sticking forward with Ellinger going forward is that they're just trying to lose now, because Matt Ryan or even Nick Foles give you a better chance than he does, because looking at him, he was completely lost out there. They went 0 for 14 on third down.
0 for 14, 0 for 14 on third down, and then 0 for 1 on fourth.
Yeah, so it's the offense is awful, and it starts with the offensive line. I don't think the quarterback's any good either, but I would assume they're doing this just that way they can try and draft someone, because they keep going this old quarterback route and it's not working for them. So we'll see. But
the thing I don't get about that though is when they announced it, the Titans were, I believe, 4-2. And then the Colts were 3-1, and they're in the same division, so they're only a game back. And then they announced that Ellinger's quarterback the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if you're like right now, it would make sense, but at the time you were still fighting for a playoff position. But then also it's usually you do that where you want to see what you got in the guy, but going the rest of the way, do you think he's a franchise quarterback? Did you think it at the time with your 6th round pick who hadn't played a single game yet that he was going to be your franchise quarterback? I think they're going to have to go after another quarterback next season, especially considering how good their defense is and having Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman and the highest paid offensive line. I know they have, they struggle, but you have the pieces there to be successful.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. And it's weird. And then, like even Bailey Zappi looks better than him, and Bailey Zappi's a rookie. He's not in his 2nd year. So, and I'm not the biggest Bailey Zappi fan like some people are, but I also think he's very serviceable. So, but
one thing on the Colts D before we transition to something else. I don't know if we were going to transition to something else, but
I was.
One person that really impressed me was Bobby Okereke, where he was all over the field. I don't know if you noticed it being in the stands, but pretty much every run, he was in the backfield, sometimes in passes. He was really good job in coverage. I believe this is his 4th year and he's a free agent at the end of the season. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's correct. He seems like someone that Bill could actually go after, where you have a hole at linebacker right now. Bill historically signs people that are very productive against them. So he might be someone where I don't think he's going to bring in the biggest contract, but he is very productive. And he's also someone I met last year. But I wouldn't be shocked if you see Bobby Okereke on the Patriots this offseason.
That's a good point. I didn't recognize it, but I was also
his only negative play that I noticed was he was the one in coverage against Stevenson for the touchdown.
Yeah,
but it's also tough situation covering a running back if you're a linebacker.
He also made a one-handed catch, so it was a pretty good catch on that. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out, see if that happens and comes to fruition. So If it does, you hear it here first.
Yeah.
And we'll be sure to kind of tweet that out when that happens.
Yep.
If we don't lose our Twitter at all. Going on to the Patriots defense. Again, they stopped the Colts 0-14 on third down, 0-15 on third and fourth downs. At one point, it was, I think they're in the first half. I realized they had less than 100 yards on offense. And it was after the third quarter. I was like, holy shit, they still have less than 100 yards in total offense.
I think up until the last last drive in the first half, I think they were less than 10 yards. They might have even been negative.
Yeah. So it was crazy how bad it was. And they ended up with what, like 115-ish or so. I can't do that math in my head real quick, but somewhere around that. And then just the sacks that were allowed. Judon
121.
Uche 3, Bentley, Wise, Tavai. I thought actually Wilson played a really good game. This.
I thought so too.
Kind of all over the field. And the thing that I really like about Wilson is just when he's kind of just running in a straight line or going like downfield. He's very good at that. He's very good at rushing up to the quarterback, that sort of thing. It's just really where he's in spaces where he gets into trouble. But I thought he had some good plays when he was really going right in there. And they had a few nice different twists and stunts that they ran with Giuliani and Uche to kind of confuse them. But Uche having another good game, 2 games in a row where he had not had a sack in what was like over a year or two.
Before last week, his last sack was week 2 versus the Jets
of the previous year,
2021.
Yeah. So it had been like over a year since he had Zach. So hopefully he's coming on.
He actually, against the Lions, he had, I think it was either the Lions or the Bears. He had 4 pressures. So I think it was the Lions. So 3 of his last 4 games, he had 4 pressures.
Yeah. So hopefully he's coming on. I don't think
he played against the Bears either. So I think it was, I think his last 3 games, he's had 4 pressures.
But yeah, again, a really good defensive kind of play there. Again, tough to really say definitively how is this defense overall, where you're playing a team where you have a 6th-round pick from last year. You have the offensive line that's in shambles. So really, how good is this team going to be when you face like the Bills or the Bengals, but even the Bengals, they still may look, based on how bad their offensive line is, maybe they'll do the same sort of thing. But
I thought this defense, they haven't allowed a 300-yard passer all season. And their only 2 bad games were against the Bears and against the Ravens, which are running quarterbacks, where it's that style which could hurt you, which granted, coming up, you have the Bills twice with Josh Allen and you have Kyler Murray with the Cardinals. So theoretically you could get beat in those games, but against actual drop back and pass, they've actually played very well. Who knows if that'll continue when you go up against some pretty good quarterbacks and some really good receivers in the weeks to come, but they have the makings to be a good team, especially with all that speed that they've added this offseason.
All right. Anything else on the defense before we move on to 3 up, 3 down?
No, I just thought, like you said, it's tough to say how dominant of a performance it is when you're playing a team with a 6th-round quarterback, missing your best player, Jonathan Taylor, and then everything that's going on in that organization. But a win's a win.
Yeah.
And like we saw last week against the Jets, where we thought it wasn't the prettiest, the Jets had won this week. So you'll take everyone you can in the NFL.
Yep, exactly. All right, 3 up, 3 down. This should be pretty easy because they're almost pretty much exactly the same. And 3 up is the same. 3 down, I think we have 1 difference. So up, we can kind of just alternate. I'll go first. Matthew Judon, he's having another insane year this year. 3 sacks again. He's looking really good, and I'm hoping, he's claiming that he's working a lot with the conditioning team and everyone to keep him in shape and everything like that, and resting and Pilates and stretching. So hopefully he keeps us up because he's insanely good for this year.
And he's also they're limiting his snaps too, which I'm just trying to pull that up right now. This game he only played 68% of the snaps, 42. So they're trying to manage it. Part of it is also because he isn't great against the run, but he's just been extremely impressive. Your best player this season, and he was one of your best players last year too. So he thought he had a great year last year, especially the first half, but I think this first half is even better than it was last year, which is saying something.
Yep.
Let's just hope that after the bye, he continues this, which last year is kind of when he started to go downhill. But
yeah,
I think they learned from what happened last year, and I think that barring injury, I think he'll just continue with this production, hopefully.
Yep.
I guess my two up, because Judon was my first.
Yeah.
Jonathan Jones just having a very sneaky good year. I think Pro Football Focus has him as top 10 cornerback, which he's been playing mostly outside this year, which usually in his career he's playing slot, and he hasn't really missed a beat. They aren't playing as much man, so that helps him a little bit, but he's just been all over the field. He had the pick six, he had the block punt, which was a really good play. But really good timing by him to get off his man right before the snap so that the punter wouldn't see it and then go and rush and block. So he had another really good game.
Yep, I had Jonathan Jones, my second up. He had the interception as well, the punt block, which was something that I think it was Felger and Mazza pointed out, which I would have never even caught. But Bill had made the comment that it was the play was drawn up by both Cam McCord and Joe Judge, which is actually kind of saying that Joe was actually maybe helping out in special teams this year, which is probably for the better, because I think we all don't really have any faith in Cam McCord from the last 2 years. But
from last year,
yeah.
2020, they were the best special teams team in the NFL.
But yeah, really good game by him. Not really much to really say other than that. Just a really good play overall for him.
Yeah.
Next one that I had and you have would be Josh Uche. Again, three sacks. He's really coming on. I want to kind of see him against a better competition to see if that stays true and to see if he's really getting anything. Is he more than just a sub pass rusher? Can he be kind of a 3-down player? I'd like to hopefully think he can, but we'll have to see.
But even just considering the teams you're going up against the rest of the season and the style of play that they are, you don't necessarily need him as a 3-down. If you're just using him in pass situations, that's kind of what you need him for. I know it would be great if he's 3-down, but even if he just has this production in the past, that's going to do a lot for your defense.
Yep. All right. Who's your last
and
one?
Then my fourth up, which once again, Big Kick Nick, 4 for 4 with field goals. Once again, 3 field goals from 40 plus. It's just insane how automatic he is. And his third kick actually put him into 5th all time in field goals made in Patriots history, which is insane considering he's only played the equivalent of 3 seasons with the Patriots, and he's already 5th overall. Just another great season and just old reliable.
Yep. So I have the same exact thing. Not really much to say there. It's been coming how good he has been. He may end up being your MVP this year again. So it's just crazy to think about. All right, going to 3 down. First one, Patriots offensive line. Again, they're garbage. They need to get better. They have to get better in order to end up doing anything this year. So we did talk about that earlier. So not much extra to add there.
Yep, that's who I had as my number 1 down, and not much more to say other than what we already said. So I'll go into my number 2 down. Once again, have to see how many times that this is this year and also last year. But Jake Bailey, he actually had a couple punts which are actually pretty good, but then he had I believe a 31-yard punt, which was because of a lucky bounce where I think it was only 15 or 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. And then you got a lucky bounce, and then the worst punt I've ever seen in my life, which was a 7-yard punt, which was just shanked out of bounds. So I don't know what the hell is going on. He had a really good week last week, but you have the bye coming up this week, so maybe they'll try and figure it out. But if you don't, they have a punter that they signed to the practice squad. You might see some practice squad elevation of that guy, game day elevation of that guy going forward, because you can't have Jake Bailey punting 7 yards against these teams that are coming up down the stretch for you.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Especially if the offense isn't doing enough to score a whole bunch of points where you need field position. And it's crazy that he went from being an all-pro punter back in 2020 to being so inconsistent and sometimes
Yeah.
terrible.
And it's not only that he was so good, he was really good last week too. So the
Mhm.
inconsistency I don't get. 2 weeks ago he was awful. Last week he was really good, and then this week he was awful. And
Yeah.
even yesterday, some punts were really good. Some were the worst punts I've ever seen in my life. So I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, it's like his first punt, and I remember I was actually kind of interested to see what was going to happen because he was punting with the wind. So I was like, if he gets a hold of this one, it's going to be a really good punt, and he did. It was a huge hang time, far
Yep.
punt, and then the next punt he had is where it was a low snap, but he had no one rushing him. He could have
Yeah.
taken his time, punted it, he rushed it, and he hit it like 20 yards. And
Yeah.
then I don't know, they just got to figure out whatever's wrong with him,
I think
and
it
go
must.
forward.
My guess is it's all mental because
Yeah.
he's still doing kickoffs, and his kickoffs he hasn't had any issues with those. So if
Hmm.
it was injury, you would think maybe that you'd see some decline in that, but he's consistent with kickoffs. It's just the punts. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. And then my third, this is gonna be where it's different. So I could see why you had yours. Mine's
Yeah.
just Matt Patricia, for a few different reasons. One is just the offensive play calling. Sometimes it's just getting to the fact where it's very predictable, and they need to get away from that and have a little bit more kind of a variety of different things and not be so stagnant sometimes where you just know what's going to happen. They did have a really interesting wrinkle when they have that Jacoby Myers sneak,
Yeah. I
um,
like that.
which I didn't see really coming. And the Mac was really the one that kind of sealed off the whole play
Yeah.
and pushed them
If
forward.
it wasn't for Max push, they would have been
Yeah,
short. But Mac,
because Henry didn't have any leverage at all, and
yeah,
then Mac was the one that gave him it. Um, but yeah, so the play calling there, I don't think was great. I don't think that's the reason why they were so bad. I think it was more the offensive line. That's also where I'm blaming Matt Patricia because he is the de facto offensive line coach. So they should be doing something to improve this line. What I
yeah,
don't know, but they haven't improved. If anything, they've gotten worse. They were improving and then they've gotten worse. So they need to do something. And I put that partly on him because
yep,
I think the players they have can do the job. It's just you're not getting the most out of your players.
yep. No, I agree with that completely. I didn't include him, but I completely understand why you did. And then even one thing with just the play calling that I meant to talk about, but we just didn't, is with the pass protection, especially in the first half. The play calling I think got a little better in the second half, but in the first
Mhm.
half, Mac had zero time to throw, but all the plays were pretty much go routes or plays where you need time to
Mhm.
for it to develop, and there weren't any underneath routes where it would be one thing where you have one or two guys going deeper on a long route, but you have some underneath where if it doesn't, you don't have enough time, you can throw it out quick. But there wasn't
Mhm.
any of that, which caused Mac to either get sacked or just throw it away or try and scramble. So
Yep.
that was one thing. It looked like they adjusted it a little bit as the game went on, but the play calling the past couple weeks hasn't been great. But my three down was Kendrick Bourne. There is I believe on the first drive where he was a few yards short of the first down. Mac hit him right in the hands and he dropped it. It would have been
Mhm.
close if he got the first down, but that's something where you have to catch it, especially if you want to get playing time. And then he had the fumble later on in the game. He has fumbled it a few times. He's just, I'm starting to see why he has been playing as much this year,
Mhm.
which is kind of disappointing considering he is, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's one of your best playmakers. But looks like it's a lot of miscommunications or just not being mentally prepared.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say I completely agree with why you have him there. It was between him and Matt Patricia, so I picked Matty P. But yeah, I think I had said this to you. I don't know if it was over text or in one of the last couple pods, but he just doesn't seem mentally all there this year. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that was the same reason last year too. Um, and they just coached him more, and maybe Josh spent more time with him, or even Mike Lombardi or Mick Lombardi, not Mike
Yeah.
Lombardi. But yeah, it just doesn't seem mentally all focused this year, and I can see why he may not be getting. He wasn't getting the playing time at first. But yeah, all right. Going on trivia, this should be an interesting one.
Yeah. So following yesterday's game or this week's
Mhm.
game, Matthew Judon has 11 and a half sacks.
Okay.
Dietrich Wise has 5.5 sacks, and
Okay.
Josh Utre has 4 sacks, with all four of them being in the last two games. So you
Mhm.
could theoretically project three players on the Patriots having 10 plus sacks this season. How many teams, if ever, have ever had 3 players in double-digit sacks? And if it has happened, when was the last time?
Oh God, 3 players. It has happened this last time, so I'm gonna say it has happened because you wouldn't have had this question if it hasn't.
I probably would have had it, but I wouldn't have I wouldn't have termed the question the way worded the question the way I did.
What decade?
Most recent?
Yeah.
2010s.
I'm gonna go with the Seattle Seahawks in 2013.
Okay. And how many times do you think this has ever happened in NFL history, if you had to guess?
3 times.
Okay, so the Seahawks never had it. The last team was the 2014 Buffalo Bills with Mario Williams, Marcellus, Darius, and Jerry Hughes. And they also had it in 2013 to the Bills. But surprisingly happened 21 times in NFL history.
Oh, that's actually surprising.
Yeah, I would have never guessed it was that much.
All right. That's pretty interesting. But moving on to 5 actually it's gonna be 5 questions with a bonus 6 question this week. So first one, which celebrity would you want to buy the Washington Commanders?
I don't really care.
You gotta think of someone. Who would you just want to see being an owner?
I need so they're projected to sell for $7 billion, so it needs to be someone that has $7 billion. I kind of don't want to see Jeff Bezos, so someone else besides them. I don't want John Henry. I don't want Fenway Sports Group.
I'm gonna say Thomas Edward Patrick Brady.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to. He could be a very minority owner in the team.
Oh, this is just a big hypothetical fun question. Not like who realistically could afford them. All right. Revisiting a question from last year. After I gave Dan Orlovsky the kiss of death. Who's your favorite NFL analyst, local and national?
Local, I'm sticking with Mike Reese, but I'm also adding Zach Cox because I really like Zach Cox. And then if Taylor Kyles too, if you don't follow him, he's more of just like an actual analyst, not like reporter, but he has really good film breakdown. So I'm gonna go with those 3 for local, and then national. I'm gonna go Rich Eisen and Pat McAfee.
All right. So I was gonna say Mike Reese too. He I like a lot. Kyle's is really good. I don't know what you really count him as, local, national. And then Matt Chatham.
Chatham
is
too.
Really good. He's not officially an NFL analyst anymore, but really good opinions on the.
That's why I didn't include him. But if you're including him, the 4 of Chatham, Mike Reese, Zach Cox, and Taylor Kyles.
Yep. Nationally, this is really hard because I don't really think there's any good national ones out there. Pat McAfee, I would say number 1. I don't know if I count him as a full-fledged just because he's not a real NFL analyst, but I'll go with Pat McAfee there. Next one, a little fun one. So the Patriots' latest renovations that they're doing in the Gillette Stadium include the largest outdoor screen in the U.S., the lighthouse, and then the connection between the Putnam seating. So only part of it really affects most fans. So there's a lot of teams now getting new stadiums. The Titans are getting a new stadium. Had one. Their current stadium is the same design as Gillette and was made around the same time. Bills are getting a new stadium. The Bears are getting a new stadium. I would assume between the two of us, we'd both agree they don't need a new stadium. I wouldn't want a new stadium because if they did, they'd probably do it in like Boston. I have no desire to go there for a game. I'm assuming based on how much money they spent into this too, they're gonna keep doing renovations. So quickly, because this question is taking forever for me to say, what would you like to have on the docket next for them to improve at Gillette?
The parking situation. We don't park there for games. We have a secret spot, but if you were to park in the game, even for training camp or like the preseason game or the preseason practice, if you park there, you're stuck for hours on end to get out. There's the season ticket holder practice in the stadium that I went to maybe 5 years ago. where I parked, and it took me 2 hours to get out of the parking lot. And there's only 10,000 people that went to that. So I'm going with the parking.
I'm going to say do what the Dolphins have and have the covering for just the fans, but leave the stadium, like the field, open air. So that way they still have the weather, the wind, the elements, but the fans are covered. So
That's fair.
I would say that way any rain or snow you don't have to really worry about.
That's fair, but it also makes it enjoyable. I remember the Cowboys game a few years ago where it was just downpouring. And granted, I'm a youngish and healthy-ish. So like for me, it was fun. And those are the games that you remember being in. But like if they lost that game, it would have been miserable.
Oh yeah. And the older I get, the less and less I like doing that sort of stuff. Yeah. So all right. If Thomas Edward Patrick Brady was on this team, what would their record be? And this comes after just seeing Tom Curran having two different takes that are completely conflicting. One saying that Mac Jones is completely regressing and is the reason why the team's doing bad. And then the other one being that if you had Tom Brady here, it wouldn't look that much different. So
Patriots right now are 5-4. I'd say they would be 7-2 right now. With the only differences being the Ravens, where that was close until the fourth quarter, where they had some turnovers, and then the loss in overtime versus the Packers. So I think they would have won both those games. But I think the current on the field product would look similar just based on what the offensive line has been.
Yep, I'd completely agree. I think they'd have two more wins. That Ravens game with the turnovers, and then the Packers games, because you were able to contend by really doing nothing. So, but yeah, agreed. I don't think the offense will look really much different. It would kind of look like it did again, how it looked in 2019 at the end, where it looks kind of the same. And even how Brady looks this year with the Bucks, where it's not his fault, but he's got nothing around him. His receivers isn't trust. His line stinks. He's got nothing around him. He doesn't have a running game. So, but yeah. All right. Because we've already seen two coaches fired. If you had to hire a coach right now, and it have to be someone that's available, obviously. So you can't go picking like Belichick off of the Patriots or something like that. So if you had to hire a coach right now, who would you hire if you had a coaching availability?
Brian Flores. In my opinion, he's a top 5 head coach. He shouldn't have been fired. He overachieved all his years with Miami. Maybe not the last season, but they were 1-8, and then he still ended with a winning record. So Brian Flores by far.
Yep, I'd say Brian Flores. And then just to give another name, because since you mentioned him, I would say Sean Payton, just because he's going to be out.
That was my second.
It'll be interesting to see where he goes after this year, because it seems like he wants to get back in the coaching sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And then last question for a bonus. Through 9 games, Judon leads the NFL with 11.5 sacks. Will he set the Patriots' all-time sack record of 18.5 by Andre Tippett?
Andre Tippett is 18.5, so he'd have to get at least 19 or 18.5 to tie. I'm going to go with yes. I know that he fell off the end of last season, but I think he's in better condition. And with 8 games to go, barring injury, that's just on average 1 sack a game. And I think that there's some weeks he's going to get more than that. The Jets coming up, Kyler Murray, Bengals offensive line is crap. So I think he's going to get it. I think he'll end the season with 20 on the dot.
Yeah, I say he's going to pass it. I think he's better this time around. They're managing his snaps more. He seems like he's doing more for his conditioning. That Bengals game, he should get at least 2 or 3 sacks probably. So I think he'll get there. All right. News around the NFL real quick. This one's probably the most interesting one. It's coming out today. Frank Reich fired. Not terribly surprising, just based off of everything this season that's come out from Irsay, how saying it. Everyone was on the hot seat, and then this is how bad that loss was for them this past Sunday. The most interesting
and even for them though, like what more could he have really done considering the players on offense?
Oh yeah,
but like the whole situation's crap.
Yeah, but
I don't think he's a great coach, but it's tough to fault him after yesterday.
Yeah, and then some of the people say, which is really interesting, because a lot of people were crediting Frank Reich with the Carson Wentz, or the offense with the Eagles when Peterson was there, and when Frank Reich left, they're like, oh, it's because Frank Reich left, and it's not because of Pete, and that's why Peterson's doing bad. But now they're saying that when Nick Serini, I think that's how he pronounces
Yeah.
it. The Eagles coach now, because he's the one. He was on Reich's staff when he left. They're blaming the loss of him, but I don't know. I just think he gets part of the blame because he was the one that wanted Wentz. He's the one that wanted Ryan. Between him and Ballard are the one that picked the quarterbacks. So
Yeah.
you kind of are what you get. So, but the most interesting thing is Jeff Saturday being hired as their interim head coach, having zero college and NFL coaching experience at all. He's only coached high school football for I think 3 years. Having no experience whatsoever. The press conference, some of the quotes getting out there tonight were kind of interesting. Let me see if I can still find them. But
while you find it, I'll just say last week when he was an analyst, he tweeted out the Raiders look horrendous, and he's facing the Raiders upcoming.
Where was it? I have to find it. It was Nick Paula. Was it Paula? Whatever. Well,
Yeah.
we'll talk
Yeah,
about
that's
it some
fine.
other time. But if you can, just try and Google and the press conference to see some of the quotes that were coming out there. I know he was one of the things that Ursay was saying was that he was like lucky to find him, that he was still available. But just very interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Some people are claiming that this helps improve Flores' suit against the NFL because. But there's nothing like illegal about what they did here.
Yeah.
Again, it's a interim coach. You don't have to go through the whole process for an interim head coach as a regular head coach. So next one, Tom Brady come from behind win against the Rams. The team looked horrible the whole game, and they still ended up winning at the end. So just a really
Granted,
good game.
they were going up against a Rams team that is, I think it's crap, but
Yeah,
Tom Brady just once again shows that when he needs to be, he can be Tom Brady.
Yep, exactly. Bills lose to the Jets 20-17. Interesting that they ended up losing and then only scoring 20 points. But again, the Jets defense is pretty good. Allen was hurt on the last play.
Second to last play.
Second to last play. Still was able to throw. It doesn't sound. It sounds just like a sprain, is what they think it may be, and not like a tear or anything like that. Even though a tear is technically a sprain is technically a tear, but not like a major one.
Yeah.
But it is always interesting when you hear about the UCL because that is what causes Tommy John surgery. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there for that.
And then the Bills head coach Sean McDermott said more news, or they're expecting he's being evaluated today with more information to come out tomorrow or Tuesday, which is when this is going to be posted probably.
Yep. And then Chiefs, they barely beat the Titans, who had a quarterback go 5 for 16, no completions to wide receiver. And the team had only one first down after 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. So I don't know what the hell is going on over there.
But I think that just proves to show that even in the AFC, we said the two best teams by far are the Bills and Chiefs, and then everyone else. And then they showed this week that still it's the NFL, anything can happen.
Yep. And then Packers losing the Lions. The Packers are basically fucked. So I don't know how they're going to turn the season around. The biggest thing you want to kind of hit on the path to the playoffs of the Patriots. So you want to kind of harp on this, and I'll let you give you the floor here.
Okay, so I'll just go into it. So right now, Bills, the first 4 seeds are pretty much guaranteed outside of the AFC North. Bills 6-2, they're probably going to win the AFC East. Chiefs are 6-2, they're probably going to win the AFC West. Titans are 5-3, probably going to win the AFC South, and then the Ravens are 5-3 for the AFC North. So those are pretty much the top 4 teams, and then after that, there's pretty much 5 teams competing for the 3 wildcard spots. Right now, it's the Jets at 6-3, the Dolphins 6-3, and the Chargers at 5-3, taking up those 3 wildcard spots. And then the Patriots and Bengals both at 5-4 on the outside looking in. And then all other teams in the AFC have 3 wins or less. So it's pretty much those 5-3 teams fighting for those 3 wildcard spots, unless something unpredictable happens. Patriots, they have a tough schedule going forward. You're facing the Jets again, which hopefully should be a win, but they are 6-3. You're facing the Dolphins at home, 6-3. Bills twice, 6-2. Vikings in primetime on Thanksgiving, with Kirk Cousins, who normally craps his pants in primetime, but they're 7-1. Cardinals 3-6 on the road, Raiders 2-6, but Belichick isn't great against his assistant coaches, and then you have the Bengals 5-4. So you pretty much have to go at least 10-7 is my guess. Maybe 9-8 might squeak it out, but looking at the teams that you're fighting with and their strength of schedule the next season, I think you have to, if you want to make it to the playoffs, you have to win at least 5 of your last 8 games to go. So they definitely have a shot. They control their own destiny. Without of the four teams they're competing with, they face 3 of the 4. So they have, if they win the games in front of them, they'll be able to make it. But just wanted to lay out that for you guys, so you know what they're fighting against and who they're really competing with. But on an interesting note, if they do win out, if they somehow find a way to go win their last 8 games and finish 13-4, they do win the AFC East. Not saying that's going to happen, but anything's possible.
I think the most likely thing for them getting in would be the Jets kind of coming back down to earth.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting too. And then the Chargers are decimated with injuries.
I was going to say, even just Staley losing it for him.
Yeah.
Because we know that he'll lose you a few games. They almost lost last game too. Yeah. This past week.
There's 3 games that they should have lost this season because of him, but they somehow find a way to win. And then even the Dolphins, they have talent, but I'm still not sold on Mike McDaniel. And they do have some tough games. But
so I think really the Jets and the Chargers are going to fall off, and that's how the Patriots and Bengals will sneak in.
Yeah.
And then the Raiders, I don't think, as much as I like Josh, I don't think he's got a shot of.
Raiders are 2-6. They pretty much have to win out or go 7 or 8-1 over their last 9 games.
All right. So that really kind of wraps up. Anything else you'd like to talk before we end it? All right.
That's pretty much it.
So thanks everyone for joining us again. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Apple, Spotify, Twitter, wherever you're gonna get these things. Probably not Twitter. That's not what we consume a podcast, but any of those things, YouTube. Make sure to subscribe there as well. Leave some comments if you like. We can always read them, address them on there, and then follow us on Instagram, Twitter at Pats300pod, and then our website, Pats300pod.com. And then we'll look forward to talking to you guys next week with that Jets preview.